Friendly reminder. This is a truly terrifying horror movie that has scared people to death. Based on a true folk legend. A bizarre and strange plot. High energy scenes that keep coming. The horror atmosphere is off the charts. Hurry and watch it with your friends. The story begins. Awei and Azheng are a young couple, looking at their sleeping child in their arms. The couple feels incredibly happy, but they never dreamed that a package sent from their hometown for the baby would completely shatter this happy life. Azheng opened it and discovered Mom had sent over the belongings of her deceased sister's baby. Besides toys and clothes, there was also an old, yellowed music score. Take a look at this. There are words written on it. There is music. This is Siberian language. Let's have a lesson. However, what the couple doesn't know is, the text on it is actually a spell that can summon demons. In the blink of an eye, several months have passed. The baby has entered the most difficult stage to soothe. He clings to Azheng from morning till night. Otherwise, he cries and fusses non-stop. Azheng, exhausted both physically and mentally. Accidentally, she found that lullaby book again in the cabinet. She saw that the content had already been translated by her husband. Azheng decided to give it a try. Sure enough, she just softly sang a short part. The baby immediately stopped crying. But while humming, she didn't notice. The mirror in the room outside suddenly shattered. It was as if something wanted to burst out. After seeing her son fall asleep, the couple finally had a chance to connect emotionally. But that night, strange things happened. In the middle of the night, Azheng woke up groggily. She instinctively glanced at the baby room's monitor. To her surprise, she saw something flash by. She found it strange and focused her gaze. Suddenly discovered a face by the baby's crib. Azheng was startled. She quickly got up and went to check the nursery. But she found nothing. She thought the monitor had malfunctioned, so she simply threw it into the cabinet. But just as Azheng was about to go back to sleep, the parrot in the living room suddenly started making noise. At the same time, there were continuous banging sounds coming from the room. John? Azheng thought someone was banging on the door outside, but when she looked through the peephole, she found nothing again. She thought she was being paranoid and hearing things, but she didn't notice. The mirror in the living room was cracking more severely. The next morning, while the baby was still sound asleep, Azheng suddenly wanted to be intimate with her husband. But just as she embraced him, her husband suddenly appeared through the mirror, saw a terrifying face. Rachel. Azheng thought her husband was complaining about her aging looks, so she angrily took the baby and left the house. Just then, they needed to replace a baby monitor at home, but as she pushed the child to the sales area, the monitors in front of her suddenly experienced unusual interference. The images began to flicker, and a malevolent spirit slowly appeared. Then the supermarket suddenly plunged into darkness. Azheng thought it was a power outage and quickly called for a staff member. But at that moment, next to the originally empty shelf, a malevolent spirit suddenly appeared, wanting to snatch Azhen's child. Just as a staff member arrived, the surroundings instantly returned to normal. From the staff member's bewildered expression, it was clear that she seemed unaware of everything that had just happened. Azheng, who was stunned with fear, she could only return home in a daze with the child. This scene is truly spectacular. I really want to drive to the scene and take a look. Speaking of cars, I recently bought a car from Gwazi Used Cars. I bought a BYD Han. I only spent a little over 90,000. It's 100,000 cheaper than a new car. It drives just like new. New cars are depreciating quickly now. Gwazi is really cost-effective. Every car at Gwazi has undergone official professional inspection. You can test drive for 3 days first, so you can buy with peace of mind. If you have an old car, you can also auction it nationwide through Gwazi. In short, trust me, Gwazi is the way to go for buying and selling used cars. But the strange events were not over yet. That night, Azheng was in the living room, dazed while holding the child. Suddenly, there was thunder and lightning outside. The next second, the house was pitch black. At that moment, Azheng seemed to hear the sound of a baby crying in the house. But the child was clearly in her arms. So who was crying? Azheng mustered her courage and went to the nursery. She unexpectedly found a child in the bed. She quickly pulled back the blanket, but she discovered it was just a doll. But at that moment, a black claw suddenly pushed open the wardrobe behind her. Now, Azheng didn't dare to go home anymore. She simply waited on the first floor with the child for her husband to return. She told her husband that there was something evil in the house. But when her husband came home, he searched around. Yet he didn't find even a trace of a ghost. He even accidentally killed his beloved parrot. But Azheng swore that she really saw a gaunt-faced female ghost. After hearing his wife's description, Awei suddenly got up and brought over the lullaby book. He pointed to an illustration in it and told his wife that he also saw this ghostly figure in the mirror that morning. That's why he was startled and pushed her away. But the couple preferred to suspect it was just postpartum depression, problems caused by excessive stress. I never doubted that there was something sinister in this book, but I still felt that this book was somewhat ominous, so I decided to throw it away. But that night, something strange happened. In the early morning, the baby started crying again. Awakened by the noise, Awei got up to soothe the baby, following the sound of the baby's cries. In a daze, he unexpectedly found himself in the trash room downstairs. and discovered that the eerie crying sound was actually coming from the sheet music for a lullaby. Awei realized that there was something wrong with this book, so he took it back to carefully study the illustrations in it. Meanwhile, his wife, who was trying to put the baby to sleep in bed, encountered another strange event. Just a moment ago, she had seen her son right beside her, but with the sound of a strange noise. In the blink of an eye, the child suddenly vanished without a trace. Immediately after, the sound of the baby crying suddenly came from under the blanket. Azheng was terrified. She was worried the baby was suffocating and hurriedly crawled in to look for him. But at that moment, she felt as if she had entered a void. No matter how she searched, she couldn't find her son. Suddenly, she felt something. In the next second, Azheng was startled. She desperately crawled out of the bed, but then she saw her adorable son right beside her. Her husband, who rushed over upon hearing the news, saw the situation. He finally realized the seriousness of the problem. So the couple split up to take different paths. Awei took the child to find an exorcist. Meanwhile, Azheng found the previous owner of the book, her sister, Awei. But a few years ago, her sister suddenly went insane. She even killed her own child with her own hands. She had already been locked up in a mental hospital. After hearing that their mother had sent the lullaby sheet music to her sister, the first thing Awei was concerned about was whether she had sung the lullaby in it. Upon learning that her sister came because of this matter, Awei then told her that the book sealed a demon named Lilith. She herself had sung the lullaby from the book, which led to her son being taken away by the demon. Meanwhile, Awei also learned from the exorcist that Lilith was the first woman. God created her to be Adam's wife. When they were together, Adam would sing this song of love to her. But later, God expelled Lilith from the Garden of Eden. There are rumors that she slept with wolves and gave birth to a disabled child. Later, Lilith saw that Adam and Eve had given birth to perfect children, and she became filled with jealousy. From that time on, she began to steal Adam and Eve's children, until God heard the prayers of Adam's descendants. Only then did he banish Lilith to the underworld. But Lilith, in order to continue stealing perfect children, weaved the spell into a lullaby. Whenever mothers sang this song, they would unconsciously summon Lilith from the underworld. This demon was too powerful. Even the exorcists were no match for her. But she introduced Awei to another powerful exorcism expert. Seeing that it was getting late, Awei had no choice but to take the child home first. But as soon as he got home, he realized he had forgotten to turn off the faucet. He placed the child on the floor and went to the bathroom to clean up alone. Yet he didn't notice that the bathroom door had quietly closed. Meanwhile, a two-headed symbiotic monster suddenly appeared. The monster targeted the child who was alone in the living room. The monster knocked over the vase on the table. Sharp shards fell right in front of the child. Fortunately, at the critical moment, Azheng rushed back. She was accompanied by Awei when she returned. As soon as she entered the house, she joined Azheng. They covered all the mirrors in the house with cloth, because demons enter and exit through mirrors. Just then, Awei also received a mysterious phone call. "Hello? I know you have a book. Who are you? Your friend said you need help." After hanging up the phone, Awei immediately went out. He found the exorcist who made the call. The expert only studied the book briefly. He realized that the demon was performing a ritual. The ritual consists of 3 steps. The first step is to sing a lullaby to summon Lilith. Azheng has already carried out this step. The second step is to contaminate the environment with unclean blood. This is when Awei remembered. A few days ago, he had killed his family's parrot. The blood had already stained the floor. Now the demon was just one step away. To obtain the child's blood, it could take away his child. Sure enough, just as Awei was seeking help from an exorcist, the demon had already set its sights on the child in the crib. Taking advantage of Azheng being fast asleep, the demon quietly approached the crib. But at that moment, the child suddenly started crying. Azheng was awakened by the noise and immediately picked up the child. But at that moment, Awei also rushed over upon hearing the news. She took the child and told Azheng to rest first. But secretly, she lifted the mirror behind her back and began to sing a lullaby to summon Lilith. Azheng, who was washing her face in the bathroom, heard the familiar song. Only then did she realize something was wrong. But by the time she returned to the nursery, it was already too late. Her sister had pricked the child's palm with a needle. The third ritual to summon the demon had been completed. Now they just waited for Lilith to appear and take the child away. And the reason she did this was to exchange for her own child with the demon. So ever since she learned that Azheng had given birth, her sister had asked their mother to send the book over. She prayed every day that she would sing a lullaby. Meanwhile, on the other side, the exorcist handed Awei a candlestick and a spell. He said these things could help her drive away Lilith. Awei hurried home with a skeptical attitude. But halfway there, the demon suddenly appeared. Fuck. Awei simply abandoned the car and ran away. A strong premonition was telling him, the child will be in danger. As expected, Awei, who has been going crazy thinking about the child, after knocking Azheng to the ground, she actually witnessed Lilith take the child away. When Azheng woke up, she saw her sister and the child had already disappeared. She was nearly on the verge of collapse. But in the next second, her sister suddenly appeared from the mirror behind her. She pulled Azheng inside. At this moment, Awei, who was rushing home, after discovering the monster lying on the bed, he realized that Lilith had already taken the child, and saw that Azheng was also trapped in the mirror. Before Awei could even ask what had happened, Azheng was suddenly pulled away from the mirror. She fell onto a pile of baby corpses. And not far away, Lilith's two-headed baby servant was grabbing her foot, trying to drag her into the pile of corpses to bury her. But at this critical moment, Sister Awei suddenly came to the rescue. She told Azheng, "If you want to find your child, you must softly call his name." Sure enough, after Azheng calmed down and did as instructed, she heard a familiar crying sound. She immediately followed the sound to find it. Meanwhile, Awei, isolated outside the mirror, lit the candlestick given by the exorcist, started searching in every mirror in the house for his wife's figure. Although Azheng could see him, the sound couldn't get through. "You have to cover them." "What?" "You have to cover the mirror." "I can't hear you." "You must do this." Suddenly, all the lights in the room went out. The demon suddenly appeared. It snatched the candlestick from Awei's hand and blew out the candle. Fortunately, Awei still had a spell at hand. Indeed, as he continued to chant the spell, the demon was gradually pushed back by him. The candlestick also lit up again. Meanwhile, Azheng from the mirror world finally found the room where the child was. But there were hundreds of children here. In order to stop Azheng, the demon deliberately made all the children cry at once. But he still underestimated the power of a mother's love. Azheng successfully found the child's shoulder. She was about to leave with the child. At that moment, Lilith appeared. "Don't come any closer, leave us alone." Lilith snatched the child away and pushed Azheng down. As a mother, Azheng bravely rushed forward, ready to duel with Lilith. But how could she possibly be a match for the demon? Just as Lilith put down the child and was about to kill Azheng, at the critical moment, the sister lunged at Lilith with a shard of the mirror. Then she picked up the child and handed it to Azheng. "Let her escape with the child first. I will hold off Lilith myself." Awei is naturally no match for Lilith. In less than a minute, she died at Lilith's hands. She became her puppet. Fortunately, at the last moment, Azheng followed the light and found the mirror where her husband was. She suddenly burst out, but Lilith quickly followed her out. Awei saw this and immediately used the candlestick and a spell to push her back. The couple, having survived the ordeal, finally looked at their son. But they discovered that the baby in their arms was actually the sister's child. Azheng then realized that the child had been swapped, because only something that can make a woman act recklessly and sacrifice herself can be maternal love, right? Alright, that's the end of today's story. I am a fragrant pig. See you next time.